The year is 2020, a year that will be remembered for its unprecedented challenges and global upheaval. A global pandemic grips the world, bringing life as we know it to a standstill. Streets are empty, hospitals are overwhelmed, and the world is in a state of collective anxiety. Amidst this chaos, America finds itself embroiled in one of the most contentious presidential elections in its history. Campaigns are forced to adapt, with virtual rallies and socially distanced events becoming the new norm. The incumbent, Donald Trump, faces off against Democratic challenger Joe Biden. Both candidates navigate uncharted waters, trying to connect with voters in a time of social distancing and uncertainty. Tensions are high, rhetoric is heated, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The nation is deeply divided, with passionate supporters on both sides. As the dust settles on election night, a clear winner emerges: Joe Biden. His victory is celebrated by many, but the jubilation is tempered by the looming uncertainty of what comes next. But this is just the beginning of the story. The election results spark a series of unprecedented events that will test the very fabric of American democracy. In an unprecedented turn of events, Donald Trump refuses to concede, claiming widespread voter fraud without evidence. His refusal to accept the results ignites a firestorm of controversy and division. His claims are repeatedly debunked by election officials and courts across the country. Despite the lack of evidence, the narrative of a stolen election gains traction among his supporters. Yet, the seeds of doubt are sown, setting the stage for a brazen attempt to overturn the will of the American people, the fake elector scheme. This scheme involves a coordinated effort to submit false electoral votes in key states. This scheme, as we'll soon discover, is a tale of audacious claims, blatant disregard for the law, and a chilling willingness to subvert democracy itself. It reveals the lengths to which some will go to cling to power. It's a story with far-reaching implications, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about the fragility of our democratic institutions and the importance of safeguarding them against those who seek to exploit them for their own gain. The events of 2020 serve as a stark reminder that democracy is not a given, but a system that requires constant vigilance and protection. Before we dive into the fake elector scheme, let's understand the Electoral College. It's a unique mechanism for the indirect election of the president and vice president, balancing the influence of high-population states against smaller ones. Many Americans are confused by this system, wondering why their vote doesn't directly decide the president, leading to a sense of disconnection. When Americans vote for president, they're actually voting for electors chosen by their political party who pledge to support that candidate. These electors meet a few weeks after Election Day to cast their votes, a critical step in deciding the next president. The candidate who secures a majority of the electoral votes, 270 out of 538, wins the presidency, ensuring broad support across the country. Designed by the Founding Fathers, the system balances power between populous and less populous states, preventing any single region from dominating. The fake elector scheme aimed to exploit this system. By installing alternate electors in states won by Biden, Trump's allies hope to create chaos and cast doubt on the election's legitimacy. Despite its flaws, the Electoral College has guided peaceful transitions of power for over 2 centuries, remaining a fundamental part of the electoral process. Understanding the Electoral College and its role in our democracy is crucial. Civic engagement and informed voting ensure the system works as intended and represents the will of the people. As Joe Biden's victory became increasingly clear, a plan began to take shape in Trump's inner circle, a plan as audacious as it was desperate. The goal? To undermine the legitimate results of the election by creating competing slates of electors in key battleground states. These fake electors, often comprised of local GOP officials and party loyalists, would meet in their respective states, claiming that Trump had actually won. They would then send their fraudulent electoral votes to Congress, hoping to create enough confusion and chaos to disrupt the formal counting of electoral votes on January 6th. 7 states, all crucial to Biden's victory, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, became the targets of this scheme. The plan relied on a combination of legal challenges, pressure campaigns on state officials, and ultimately, the hope that Congress would accept their alternate electors, thereby handing Trump a second term. The fake electors weren't exactly a subtle bunch. They were bold, audacious, and unafraid to make their presence known. They weren't hiding in the shadows. Instead, They were operating in plain sight, making their moves with a certain level of brazenness that was hard to ignore. They were sending their so-called votes to Congress, seemingly hoping that no one would notice or care. Their actions were brazen, their claims unsubstantiated, and their methods completely illegal. Their loyalty to Trump was unwavering. These individuals, who were deeply entrenched in the political landscape, many of whom were local party officials or had ties to Trump's campaign, were determined to see their mission through. They believed they were on a righteous path, arguing that they were simply preserving Trump's chance to win in court. They claimed, without evidence, that widespread voter fraud had tainted the election, and their actions were justified in the name of protecting election integrity. They painted themselves as defenders of democracy, but their strategy, however, seemed less about legal arguments and more about creating a narrative of doubt and confusion. They were playing a dangerous game, one that involved manipulating public perception and sowing seeds of distrust in the electoral process. They were banking on the idea that if they could muddy the waters enough, they could potentially sway public opinion or pressure lawmakers into accepting their false claims. This was not just a simple act of political theater. It was a calculated effort to disrupt the democratic process. By creating chaos and confusion, they hoped to undermine the legitimacy of the election results and cast doubt on the entire electoral system. Their actions were a direct attack on the principles of democracy, and they were willing to go to great lengths to achieve their goals. They sought to pressure lawmakers, influence public opinion, and ultimately change the course of history. But this wasn't just a harmless publicity stunt. It was a deliberate attempt to undermine a fundamental pillar of American democracy, the peaceful transfer of power. Their actions had far-reaching implications. Then came January 6th, the final piece of the puzzle. By directing his followers to the Capitol with the instructions to fight like hell, he set in motion the attempt to delay the transfer of power. We all witnessed the violent attempt to overturn the election results as rioters stormed the Capitol. The fake elector scheme was part of a broader strategy to disrupt the certification of the electoral votes. Rioters even chanted threats against Mike Pence, pressuring him to overturn the results, threatening the very foundation of the democratic process and the trust that the American people place in their electoral system. The strategy of the fake electors was a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy and the lengths to which some will go to subvert it. Defending democracy is crucial, even when we disagree, because it ensures that every voice is heard and every vote is counted. Democracy is built on the principles of fairness and the peaceful transfer of power, which safeguards our freedoms and rights. Allowing any president to interfere with this process undermines the very foundation of our nation, leading to authoritarianism and eroding trust in our institutions. If not for Mike Pence's unwavering commitment to his constitutional duty, which played a crucial role in preserving American democracy. By resisting immense pressure and ensuring the certification of the electoral votes, Pence upheld the rule of law and demonstrated the resilience of democratic institutions. We can't allow it to happen again. Stay informed, stay empowered. Knowledge is the first step towards positive change, and vote this November.